Israel's Security Cabinet has approved a ceasefire deal with Hezbollah in Lebanon following Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's agreement. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that Ukrainian troops attacked territories near the Zaporozhe nuclear power plant. And Colombian and Venezuelan lawmakers assess the progress and challenges following the resumption of relations promoted by Colombian President Gustavo Petro and his Venezuelan counterpart Nicolás Maduro. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from TeleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Israel's Security Cabinet has approved a U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal with Hezbollah in Lebanon following Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's agreement. The Prime Minister's office said the plan was approved by a 10-1 vote. Previously, Netanyahu had cited three main reasons for the deal on the Israeli part, namely to focus on the Iranian threat, to refresh army forces and resupply, and to disconnect the front and isolate the Palestinian resistance Hamas. Furthermore, he stressed Israel will attack if Hezbollah violates the proposed truce. The agreement allegedly repeats United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701 and involves the monitoring of the U.S. and France. Israeli media reported that the cessation of hostilities will take effect at 4 a.m. local time on Wednesday. In the meantime, the Zionist forces have issued new evacuation warnings for Beirut's southern suburbs. In this context, the Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati addressed the matter after Israel's ceasefire proposal. Mikati said that the international community must enforce an immediate ceasefire. He also added that Israel has no regard for any law after targeting Beirut and other regions this same afternoon in a series of attacks that the Prime Minister described as hysterical. Finally, Mikati stressed that attacking the capital shows the particular hatred of Israel, as Beirut represents all Lebanese people and is home to most of the displaced population. Furthermore, the Lebanese Prime Minister took to his social media X to add, "I received a call from U.S. President Joe Biden, during which we consulted on the current situation. I thank him for the U.S. support for Lebanon and the efforts made by his envoy, Mr. Hochstein. We welcome the decision to cease fire in Lebanon, which the United States of America and France helped arrange, thankfully." In this context, Al Jazeera correspondent Zaina Hodder reported the reaction of Hezbollah official Mahmoud Kamati to the agreement. According to this source, the official stated that the resistance needs to review the clauses of the ceasefire agreement that was approved by the enemy. The organization also highlighted the need to see if it is the same deal that the Lebanese authorities approved and stressed that no deal will be accepted that violates Lebanon's sovereignty. In this way, they underscored that it is the job of Lebanese authorities to make sure it is the same deal that it was proposed and approved last week. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, has taken to X to address the ceasefire negotiations underway. In this regard, he stated, "Today, I have good news to report from the Middle East. I have spoken to the Prime Ministers of Lebanon and Israel, and I am pleased to announce they have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah." And as the Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced his ceasefire proposal, bombings have intensified across Lebanon, increasing casualties in past hours. The Lebanese National News Agency reported at least 6 people were killed in an Israeli air raid on a house in Baalbek in the eastern region of the country, while a different strike killed at least 4 other people in the same city. The capital Beirut and Tyre and Bint Jbeil in the south were also targeted, as warnings issued for West Beirut left a level of fear and panic that has forced people out of the city. The Russian government warned about the United States' attempts to destabilize the member nations of the Community of Independent States. The Russian Foreign Intelligence Service said the United States and its allies are making joint efforts to undermine the integration processes on the Russian continent. The intelligence service indicated that the US and British intelligence agencies have set themselves the ambitious task of breaking not only political and economic ties, but also the deep historical and even geographical ties between the nations of the region. Authorities of the said agency pointed out that an example of this is their support for Ukraine, a country used by Washington as a war machine against Russia. Russia denounces Western attempt to spark a color revolution in Georgia following the results of parliamentary elections. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned that the West continues with its efforts to increase the tensions in the conflicts in the region. The head of the Russian diplomacy also warned that Western countries, which are also members of NATO, are taking advantage of their influence on non-governmental organizations to destabilize the internal politics of Georgia. Opposition parties qualified the parliamentary election of October 26th as an alleged fraud, and with them have unleashed matrices to generate scenarios of violence with the use of students, although the Central Electoral Commission certified the results of the elections. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that Ukrainian troops attacked territories near the Zaporozhe nuclear power plant. The ministry detailed that in the last hours, Kyiv carried out 5 bombings and 3 air raids against residential areas near the nuclear power plant. Defense authorities assured that anti-aircraft defenses destroyed 2 drones and the third one was disabled by a cyber attack. The power plant's authorities assure that its personnel continue their duties to maintain security. Russia has repeatedly denounced Kyiv's attacks on the nuclear power plant and nearby populated areas, which endanger citizens and could lead to a nuclear disaster. Iran and Russia have abandoned the US dollar in their financial transactions and will use from now on their national currencies. The announcement was made by the governor of Iran's central bank, Mohammad Reza Farsin, at the 11th Conference on Modern Banking and Payment Systems in Tehran. The banking official said that the decision was part of a plan to counter Western sanctions against both nations and reiterated that now the trade between Moscow and Tehran will be conducted in rubles and rials. Farsin also revealed that the two nations' financial authorities have agreed on the exchange rate to be used for their foreign trade transactions. Iran and Russia first announced plans to use their respective national currencies instead of the US dollar in their mutual trade in July 2022. We have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In western Indonesia, Rescue workers used heavy equipment on Tuesday to dig out from weekend flooding and landslides that have killed at least 20 people. Beginning Saturday, heavy rain pounded 4 districts across northern Sumatra, producing the deadly floods and landslides. Disaster chief in hardest hit Karo district, Justri Nadeak, said the discovery of victims not yet reported missing to authorities remained a possibility. Rescue and recovery efforts are hindered by the lack of electricity and cell phone reception. Indonesia has suffered a string of recent extreme weather events, which experts say are made more likely by climate change. In May, at least 67 people died after a mixture of ash, sand and pebbles carried down from the eruption of Mount Marapi in West Sumatra.
Approximately 10 people were reported missing in this village. We began the evacuation efforts on Sunday, where we found 4 victims. On Monday, we discovered 5 more, leaving just 1 person unaccounted for. Currently, our focus is on assisting the affected community. We've set up an evacuation post in Semangat Gunung village.
In El Salvador, following a landslide in the district of San Pedro Peruplapan, authorities confirmed the death of 2 people and the rescue of 2 survivors. The accident took place in the central municipality of Cucatlán after a landslide trapped workers who were transporting sand in the area. After the accident, civil protection personnel and police officers were mobilized to the area of the accident to start search and rescue efforts. Due to the quick response of the authorities, 2 survivors were found. Brazilian meteorological authorities warned of high temperatures in the Amazon region, adding that they could reach 5.1 degrees Celsius above normal for this time of year. The National Institute of Meteorology reported that the heat wave is an anomaly influenced by the global climate crisis and regional factors due to deforestation. It also warned that another phenomenon is expected at the end of this year in the region that could have a mitigating impact on the temperature called La Niña, which could possibly cause a cooling of the Pacific Ocean and an increase in rainfall in the Amazon region. On the other hand, authorities warn people to protect themselves with clothes that cover the whole body as well as sunblock and to keep hydrated. In several cities of France, farmers' unions continue to mobilize in rejection of the free trade agreement between the European Union and Mercosur. Called by the National Federation of Agricultural Holders Unions, the sector resumed protest after the approval of the elimination of tariffs on European exports to South American nations. Union workers filed the streets of Strasbourg and Perpignan with tractors to denounce what they considered to be unfair competition. Farmers claimed that eliminating export regulations for products that do not comply with European sanitary requirements benefits foreign companies to the detriment of French farm workers.
We asked for measures to simplify the export of animals, for example, and we got a very nonchalant administration back in May-June that didn't want to listen, hear, or propose anything. And so today we're back. We're up to date with our work, so we're back with the same demands. And we're obliged, I regret it, but we're obliged to show off the big guns because nothing is moving forward with the administration.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Brazil, the Minister of the Supreme Court withdrew secrecy on documents on the federal police report presented to the Attorney General's office. The document refers to the coup attempt against the President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva in 2023. Our correspondent Ignacio Lemos tells us more.
Greetings, the Minister of the Supreme Court, Leandre de Moraes, withdrew the seal on the documents of the report of the federal police, which were presented during today's meeting before the Attorney General of the Republic, in which the participation of 37 people is shown in the coup attempt against Lula da Silva, which was managed during the year 2022 and had its apex with the invasion of the three powers on January 8, 2023. Among these 37 people there are ministers and there is also the former president of the Republic, Jair Bolsonaro. This document refers to him, stating that he had active participation and knowledge of everything that was going on in search of an attempt to withdraw Lula da Silva's power or at least prevent his assumption in the year 2023 as President of the Republic. Some of the notes that we can rescue from this document, with hundreds of pages, is that a police officer infiltrated Lula da Silva's security to send information to the coup group made up of military personnel and other sectors of Brazilian security. Also that the military planned to withdraw Jair Bolsonaro from the country in case he was investigated during the year 2022, and that the accused tried to access the information about the awarded statement of Mauro Cid, a former advisor of former President Jair Bolsonaro, to the federal police. Also, Mauro Cid stated that Bolsonaro asked for adjustments in the document on the coup attempt to be presented in this way before this measure was implemented. And on the other hand, it should be noted that one of the coup militants stated that the Navy had the tanks ready on the streets to mobilize in case this coup attempt was carried out with the signature of the document by former President Jair Bolsonaro. In one of the documents that were withdrawn from the headquarters of Bolsonaro's Liberal Party, which was under the power of a former advisor of Jair Bolsonaro's formula partner, Braga Neto, it appears in the entire document as a conclusion of the document, a sentence that is very significant about this entire coup attempt, which said, "Lula does not climb the ramp," referring to the climb of the ramp to the Palacio del Planalto on the day of Lula da Silva's assumption. There are several data, 8 specific points that show Bolsonaro's active participation in this whole process, Bolsonaro's knowledge about the documents, the meetings he held with members of the government, and also sectors of Brazilian security, police and other sectors that carried out the narrative, promoted, disseminated the narrative of the lack of transparency in the Brazilian electoral system, and that later these same people were the ones who were involved in this whole plot to carry out the coup attempt against Lula da Silva. It should be remembered that these documents have now passed from the federal police to the General Prosecutor's Office of the Republic, which will analyze them, expand or reduce the complaints against the accused or also alter the role of the accused in this whole plot. The truth is that these results or a specific criminal complaint can only be carried out from February 2025, if the Federal Prosecutor's Office of the Republic decides so. We will see what happens until then in Brazil, fellows.
The government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, in an official communique, rejected the G7 statement on the Venezuelan electoral and political process. The communique reads as follows: The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela categorically rejects the absurd statement on the Venezuelan electoral and political process issued by the G7, a group of powers that insist on believing itself to be the arbiter of global democracy while covering up its own political, economic and moral failures, supporting genocides and stimulating the spread of Nazi and fascist ideology in Europe and the world. The document also states it is particularly ironic that these same countries, which greatly embarrassed themselves in 2019 by recognizing an impostor as interim president, now pretend to give lessons on popular will and electoral processes. They are trying, from the colonialist and imperialist complex, to prepare the ground to disregard the institutions and decisions of the Venezuelan people with a fantasy of a Guaidó 2.0 that will again crash against the dignity of the heirs of Simón Bolívar. In addition, it reads, warned the G7 countries that this arrogant and interfering attitude will not go unchallenged. Venezuela will proceed to thoroughly review its relations with each of the governments that make up this group because respect for national sovereignty is non-negotiable. Finally, it concludes, history has already shown that the Bolivarian people will not accept any more tutelage. Venezuela is free and will continue to be so, no matter how much it hurts to those who have not overcome their imperial compulsions. Colombian and Venezuelan lawmakers assess the progress and challenges following the resumption of relations promoted by Colombian President Gustavo Petro and his Venezuelan counterpart Nicolás Maduro. The meeting began at 9 a.m. local time. Colombian deputies hosted their Venezuelan counterparts in the city of Bogotá to follow up and deepen commercial and friendly relations between the two nations. Likewise, the parties will discuss the lines of action for a plan on the border, the need to promote initiatives that allow the linking of the institutions and the people, as well as other subjects of mutual interest. The reestablishment of commercial and friendly relations between Bogotá and Caracas came after Gustavo Petro took over the Colombian presidency after 6 years of estrangement.
The first thing is to tell people that we are working for the effective re-establishment in all senses of relations between Colombia and Venezuela. Something absolutely terrible that happened is that we went from an exchange of $7 billion to $220 million, and when more than 90% of the resources are no longer exchanged, it is not the governments that suffer, but the people. So this commission for the re-establishment of relations between Colombia and Venezuela, created in a bicameral manner, for the Senate and the Chamber, will allow this accompaniment, or has been doing so with 2 draft agreements that have already passed through the Congress of the Republic. With the visit today of some deputies after, we were also in Cúcuta in a meeting, setting up this binational commission.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.